On today's show, Alex Ovechkin scores number 899 as the Capitals win their sixth in the last seven.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holmi. I've covered the Capitals for the past 4 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the Caps as they pick up a big win on the road over Columbus by a score of 5-1. Who stepped up in the Caps victory? A little bit later, I'll talk about what the win means for the Capitals, as this team is humming right now. The Capitals get 6th win in the past 7, but the main event here, Alex Ovechkin, my captain, your captain, our captain, scores number 899 and is now just 1 goal away from 900. Can we believe it? For the longest time covering this team, it felt like, is Alex Ovechkin going to be able to catch and pass Gretzky under his current contract? Well, now he's edging closer to 900, just driving it so far into the outfield that the next guy that tries to challenge him is going to really have to struggle. So Alex Ovechkin, huge as the Capitals continue to keep rolling and picking up a big win in the game. And that's the big storyline. It was Alex Ovechkin's night in Columbus, and he deserves a lot of the credit in the Capitals win. So picture this for a second. Nationwide arena, it was in Columbus, a division opponent, a lot at stake. The players, the teams, they're fighting for, edging their way up the standings. And, at the first period and a good chunk of the second period, it was like the teams were kind of feeling each other out there. That Logan Thompson was dialed in on the Caps end and Jet Greaves on the other end. It felt a bit like a stalemate until the floodgates opened. And, then early in the third period, Ovechkin rips home number 899 of his NHL career. Now let that soak in, 899. And it's kind of a wild thing to say it out loud because it doesn't seem like something that would have ever been able to be done before. But when we've seen Ovechkin collect milestones before, this was a big one. And of course, number 900 is going to even be that much bigger. Now, we've sat through some big moments with Alex Ovechkin before. And, all things considered, a bit of a slower start to the 25-26 season. I think that he is turning it on here a little bit more. And oftentimes, like with a lot of other players, that once they find their groove, then the goals start to flow that much more freely. Now, you slow the game down in your head for a second. You think about his career. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, that I don't want to take a moment of what I'm seeing with Ovechkin on the ice for granted, because next season, that's what it'll be, a memory of a truly legendary career. And I don't want to get all, deep and emotional on you here, but it is cool to be living through this time as an NHL fan, for one, but more specifically as a Capitals fan, as he continues to just keep knocking it out of the park and, uncharted territory in the goal scoring department. But the goal itself is something we've seen before. Even this year, Strome wins the faceoff, shoots it to Ovechkin. Ovechkin finds Twine, and it is a good play that has seen some pretty good production this season, and it works well. And, it's chipping yet another goal away on Alex Ovechkin, just knocking it out of the park more and more. And you could see it coming. And it was one of those ones that if you blinked, you missed it. And oftentimes it's like that if you're watching the games in real time on television that, well, I missed it. I looked down, I looked at my phone, I did, and you missed it and you got to rewind it. It was one of those kind of things. But just one of the things that ultimately, kind of started to set the wheels in motion in this game. Like I said, the Capitals as a collective play that much more better when Alex Ovechkin is engaged, and it kind of just, it's infectious along the bench, I guess you could say. But it was a classic Ovechkin finish. And you take a look at it. At 40 years old, still has the release, still has the run in his game. And, if anyone thought that there was going to be a step back, I guess we haven't seen that yet. Again, a bit slower in the goal scoring department, but I think that he is still going to put up a decent amount of goals. As I said, to start the season, my projection, it's a projection at the end of the day, is 35 goals. But hey, I would love nothing more for him to just really knock it into the outfield and score 40 plus. Wouldn't that be one heck of a story? But, about Alex Ovechkin, it's more not about so much raw speed anymore. It's about timing. It's about experience. And also, in kind of more of a limited fashion, that less is more with Alex Ovechkin. He understands that he's not, 27 years old anymore, that he can't do the things that he used to do in that same regard. His wheels, I guess you could say, aren't what they once were. But worth pointing out, he wasn't just the one who scored. He picked up an assist that night too, talking about the game last night. So he's still getting involved in the playmaking, still influences the game in more than one way. And that's the thing I like about Ovi that I've seen this year is that, and we was seen this from him, a couple of years ago when he got off to that slow start, is he was still chipping in the assist department. But a great night for the grade 8. But like I said, his presence changes how the teams play around him. That, if he's not setting up from his office, what to expect. And like I said, that Strome winning the face-off and then getting it to Ovechkin, that has been huge. And it's all about, the other teams trying to adjust, right? And how are we going to account for where Alex Ovechkin is on the ice? And it's something that the teams, really haven't been able to plan for, that if he doesn't always set up from where he always sets up the left dot, that sometimes that changes everything. And that creates space for someone like JOHN CARLSON to find seams. We see him score a goal in the game as well. I'll do more of a game breakdown in the second segment. But like I said, it creates space for the guys on the wing to get better looks. It changes the game. And, Alex Ovechkin doing those kind of things, pretty much his entire career, that at 40 years old, that's 21st season in the league, still dominant. And, one more thing I want to linger on here a little bit as well is to watch a player of his caliber inch towards 900 goals is the historic event. I talked about this could be Alex Ovechkin's last season playing NHL hockey, more specifically with the Capitals, but just the history of each moment, that it's not just catching and passing Gretzky, it's how far, and you're witnessing it in real time. And I've said this on the show before. I think that's something that you really want to let soak in, is that what we're watching right now isn't some old archival footage. We're seeing it in real time. So seeing Ovechkin find a goal like that, I expect him to score more goals. Wouldn't that be something? If he could get 900 tonight versus Ottawa, that, he's charging straight ahead. And, I made a prediction that it might not be till November, because let's be honest, he did get off to a bit of a slower start in the goal scoring department, but I hope that this is a harbinger, I guess, of things that you could say are to come for Alex Ovechkin. But a truly great win by the Capitals, a truly great night by the great 8, Alex Ovechkin, that, like I said, at 40 years old, 21st season in the league, he still knows how to find the back of the net, and huge. There were 4 other Capitals that scored in the game versus Columbus, but it was a special night for the great 8, and hopefully the Capitals continue to keep riding this momentum going forward. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about who stepped up over the Jackets. It wasn't just Alex Ovechkin. This was a nice team victory. Who was responsible? I'll discuss next. Let's be real here. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard it before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors, but you avoid that uncomfortable visit with the doctor. And you can have it sent to your door. There's a lot to love here. So it's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. So live your best life. And you can do that with Rougiette. Visit RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL. And don't forget to use code LockedOnNHL so they know we sent you. Rougiette. Stop making excuses and start making moves. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes into, the app that gives your fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love that what you see is what you get. No hidden fees at checkout. I could see exactly what my view looked like before getting tickets with the in-app seat view feature, and I'm going to see the Caps play the Wild in December, and you best believe I'm going to use Game Time. You should as well. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And thank you guys for joining me on a special Saturday edition of Locked On Capitals as we talk about your victorious Capitals as they take down the Columbus Blue Jackets by a score of 5-1. In the first segment, I talked about Alex Ovechkin and scoring .899, but it wasn't the great eight. It was not Ovechkin alone that stepped up in this game. So let's talk about who stepped up in this game. So again, the first period, it was crickets. And it's one of those games that it's kind of hard to stay involved in, like this and that. Nothing happened. And, pretty good swaths of the second period as well. And, the feeling, kind of both the teams feeling each other out. Like I said, Jet Greaves on one end, Logan Thompson on the other, and both dialed in, at least to start the game. And that was it. Possession was back and forth. Nobody wanted to make a mistake because it was a low-scoring affair to start the game. So both teams kept it tidy, and they kept their play pretty clean. Low-event hockey. Then in the second period, Columbus pushes. They get a little bit more territory. They get the Caps to play a couple extra minutes in their own end. And you could see the Capitals for a stretch getting hemmed in. But number 74, JOHN CARLSON, had another plan. Right at the end of the second, JOHN CARLSON rips one through traffic from the point. Clean net, 1-0 Capitals. And JOHN CARLSON, a blue liner with a bit of an offensive flair, or I guess you could say a lot of an offensive flair, help that positivity, help the goal scoring momentum, and open the floodgates for the Capitals. And that goal, I think it's suffice to say that was one of, I'm going to say, the biggest turning point in the game, because the first goal is the hardest. And oftentimes, it's funny, when you score one goal, usually you'll score a bunch more. That was the case in this game. And I think it's all about momentum. Because sometimes you get a late second period goal and the other team's spirit drops a little bit. I think that being that we were playing in Columbus, that it took a little bit of the air out of the tire. They weren't out. The Columbus fans weren't out of it yet, but they're like, oh, it was so tight, this could have definitely gone in the Blue Jackets' favor, but not the case. But what it meant for the Capitals is getting that bench a little bit of energy, a little bit of a mental lift. And that's exactly the feeling the Caps walked into with the third period, is JOHN CARLSON, getting that goal late in the second, that was important to really make a strong push in the third. And like I said, in the third, it opened up at 136. Ovechkin, like I said, buries .899. And like I said, 64 seconds later, Justin SOURDIF gets his first as a Capital, and I feel good for SOURDIF. Kind of a clumsy goal, if you know what I mean. It is what it is. It's a good goal. It doesn't matter how clean or highlight reel-esque it is. It was good for him to get on the board, and that back-to-back felt huge. And the timing of it was what it makes it feel like a heavier blow to Columbus, is that, it was CARLSON, it was Ovechkin, it was SOURDIF that they were heaping on. And I think that ultimately in that game, especially on the road, that is when you can take the crowd out of it. And I think that Columbus tried to show some pushback, and you did see that evident, but it wasn't enough. And one big moment from a legend, that's a young guy who gets his first. It swings the pendulum in a heartbeat, talking about that sort of goal there. But Columbus does answer with one with Denton Mateychuk. And when you take a look at it, there is the feeling, even, when their Caps are playing with a lead, that we let them into this game. Is that too much? But all things considered, Logan Thompson was dialed in. And, that's the way it is. Very rarely do you get, a shutout in the game. But you could tell by looking at Logan Thompson's face, he was like, oh, my God, seriously? And it almost looked like he was saying seriously as he went for his water bottle there. But in any event, Logan Thompson was huge. Nice stretch pass. You take a look at Logan Thompson, contributing almost like a defender out there, feeding the pass. I believe it was to Ryan Leonard, then Ryan Leonard on down the ice there as well. But definitely Logan Thompson, huge in this victory. And but you take a look at it, Olivier, with that 5-minute elbow major. And it was contested, right? That there was a feeling of was it or wasn't it? And the Capitals were able to use that to their advantage as well. And as far as Columbus is concerned, that was a big penalty. And that's a long stretch for them to defend. And the Caps converted. Tom Wilson bangs home a power play goal. And hold on to your seats here, because it wasn't too long ago I was talking to you guys about how poor the Capitals' power play is. Still a work in progress, but you take a look at it, 2 for 5 on the night on the power play. It's not stellar in this particular game. I'm talking about the stretch here. The power play is really, really good in comparison to how we started, but 2 for 5 on the night is better than what we had seen from the Capitals to start the season. And, like I talked about, special teams making the most of their opportunities. The Capitals win this game 5-1, going 2 for 5 on the power play. Columbus goes 0 for 3. So that is true for them as well. That, like I say, special teams, you got to knock it out of the park or teams will make you pay. And tonight, or last night rather, it was the Capitals that made Columbus pay. And then Connor McMichael as well. It was contested as well. Was it played with a high stick? But as it turns out, when you watched it on the replay, quite decisively, it was not a high stick. And again, it was a win by committee. And, in all of this, I don't want Logan Thompson to be lost in all of this. A big night for Logan Thompson as well, making big saves, but also that stretch pass, right? That he is just this like multi-dimensional goalie that just seems to be getting better and better. So for the people out there that questioned, can we see another great season from Logan Thompson next year? Was last season just a flash in the pan? I think we got it right there. Logan finishes with 34 saves and, get this, an assist, like I talked about earlier. So Logan Thompson, clutch in this game for him. And, other players that popped off as well as HENDRIX LAPIERRE. As I talked about in a previous episode, there's a lot at stake for him. But HENDRIX LAPIERRE, the kid is quietly making the right plays. He led all cap skaters in scoring chances percentage at 5-on-5 at 66.67%. Can he do it? I think the weight of the world is off of his shoulders now that he's playing on the wing. And, that whatever it takes. And, for HENDRIX LAPIERRE, I ultimately think big picture, he doesn't care where he plays. But, if you just take a look at the raw data, regular season data, that he is playing more carefree, I think, and getting more involved when playing at the wing position. And he led all forwards in expected goals for percentage 5-on-5 at 62.14%. And those aren't garbage numbers. That is huge for a young kid that is trying to make his way with the Capitals. Again, signed that bridge deal, but still, we're still in the trial period, or the wait and see, I guess I would say about him. And those are the kind of underlying metrics that suggest a player is actually driving play, which is huge. Again, I wish that he would have found the back of the net. That's the above all end all, right? But him driving the play is huge. And he's generating quality looks as well. So high quality chances. He's winning battles. He's doing the things that he needs to do. And he's making plays in the offensive zone that led to high danger chances. And for a team that needs depth, that matters a lot, because, you take a look at Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is traveling with the team. Did not play Friday evening versus Columbus, but could, as I record this at 12:39 Eastern here. There's no definitive answer that he will be in. My hunch is that he will be in the game. But with him out of the lineup and whoever else could be out of the lineup, it is huge to have this depth scoring, and not just scoring, but generating chances and high danger and all of that. So, and also, again, to circle back to sort of his first as a Capital, and those firsts are big, man. That they settle a guy in, because, even when you talk about Leonard, he was struggling until he found that first goal, and then we started to see him contribute there. But for SOURDIF, I think that he knows that, the Capitals gave up 2 draft picks and a lot. And in the back of his mind, he's got to be thinking, like, I hope I'm worth it for them. And kind of a shy guy at the end of the day, but is warming up to the team. And I'm happy for him. I hope it is the first of many to come here. And, the bench reaction told you everything you needed to know. The teammates were genuinely happy for him. Again, a bit of an awkward goal, I guess you could say. But like I said, Thompson, I don't want to undersell him in this game. A lot of times we focus on the scores, but the netminders can make a difference on a night. And again, him getting an assist on a goal is huge. 34 saves, kept the Capitals in here, did not open the floodgates when Columbus was going to do their darndest to try to get back in this game. And that's the big thing here. And Wilson and McMichael, they finished the game. Wilson continues to be physical, annoying, and a productive presence. And McMichael's opportunistic finish is huge. And it's all of the things, the non-negotiables that Spencer Carberry talked about on the Jeff Merrick podcast. The sheet, as he said, one of the non-negotiables is I don't care if you are an AHL call-up or Alex Ovechkin, drive the paint, drive towards the goal, get the dirty goals. This doesn't have to be a highlight reel getting, from the, the point or the slot, or, drive into the paint, drive into the netminder, do whatever you have to do. And Connor McMichael is a guy that exemplifies it. He is a guy that put up 14 goals last season, scoring goals just like the one that he scored against Columbus. So Connor McMichael exemplifies the Spencer Carberry philosophy. And I think that the rest of the team is following suit as well. And I think that is a big part of what is getting the Capitals their success. All right, so coming up here after the break, why this win matters and what we should look for against Ottawa. I'll discuss next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how using FanDuel gives me so many different ways. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during the game. And the thing that I like about it, and I know you will love it as well, is say you're watching your favorite team, whether it's, let's say the Commanders or the Ravens. But say you want vested interest in all of the games, including the Commanders and Ravens, open up the FanDuel app, put down $5. All of a sudden, those games got that much more exciting. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. All right, welcome back into this weekend edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below and join the Locked On Capitals Insiders. More and more people signing up each and every day. I love it. Get direct text from yours truly about all the news surrounding the Capitals. You can text me back. A lot of cool things for the Locked On Capitals Insiders, a whole lot more in a month or so to come. I really can't divulge that, but much to like. There's more information in the show notes. All right, in the final segment of today's show, what this win means for the Capitals. Well, what it means is this team knows how to win on the road, and they know how to put up some nice wins. As you take a look at the team so far, and it's easy to magnify the losses. I'm talking about the Canucks. I'm talking about the loss to the Bruins, and the team kind of in despair. But big picture here, it was a big night for the Capitals, picking up a big win as the Capitals get their 6th win in the past 7. And that's a big thing, getting the production, even though the Capitals were outshot in the game last night, 35-30. They find a big way to pick up a win. So my thing to look for in the game versus Ottawa is, can we see this move forward? Is Pierre-Luc Dubois going to be in the game? And will the Capitals adhere to Spencer Carberry's non-negotiable of driving the net? Get the pretty goal if you can get the pretty goal. You take a look at the JOHN CARLSON goal. That was from distance, but you see the other goals that were near the net front, in the paint in some cases. That is the secret sauce for the Capitals' success. You're going to be dealing with an Ottawa Senators team that is well rested. It is important that if there is any lag, if there is any hesitancy or just overall exhaustion, being that the Capitals played the day before, that is tempered down immediately and it's full steam ahead, because the Ottawa Senators would like to make the most of a potentially exhausted Capitals team, I guess you could say. So let's talk about what to expect here in the last segment here, and what this wins for the Capitals on a macro level, and what we'll be watching over the next few weeks. First up, confidence. A 5-1 road win against a division rival does wonders for the team's belief. Now, to be clear here, this is a Columbus Blue Jackets team that is better than, let's say, last year's under the tutelage of former assistant coach Dean Evason of the Capitals. It'll be interesting to see how they play and how they fare. But, picking up a big divisional win against Columbus is huge. And winning 6 of your last 7, that's not luck. That's a pattern you can build on. That is buying in fully to Spencer Carberry's systems. And you saw it last night. The team found ways to dig out of pressure and dictate pace. That, a stalemate, let's say the first period and a line's share of the second period, it's easy to lose being dialed in, and especially for the netminder. For Logan Thompson, who didn't see a tremendous amount of shots in, let's say, the first period and a half, for example, that he was able to stay dialed in, and the Capitals just really made the most of their opportunities, including Columbus's 5-minute major. Now, the team found a way, like I said, to get out of pressure, and they leaned on their goalie, Logan Thompson. What can we expect going forward in that situation as well? Is I expect the Capitals to lean more heavily into Logan Thompson this year than vacillating between Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren. The exception, the caveat, of course, is if there's a back-to-back. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of situations where it's Logan Thompson playing back-to-back or Charlie Lindgren, unless one of them is injured. But, Spencer Carberry has talked about it as much as well, is that, and I don't know why he had a change of heart, at the end of the day, but last season, if you're an everydayer, I was talking about it as well as, I think they should lean into their number one. And Logan Thompson, like we said, is that guy. I know Chucky knocks it out of the park on the road, but in any event, lean on the number one, Logan Thompson. And if there's a back-to-back, or say the advanced metrics show that Charlie's better than another team, let's do that. So let's do that. Let's put our aces in their places, and 9 times out of 10, that is LT. But big, leaning on the goalie, they found finishing the third. That is the kind of resilience you love to see. Second, depth is real. Ovechkin gets the headline, but what I don't want lost in all of this is Justin SOURDIF. Sort of a big deal, if you know what I mean, because I think that I hear a lot about this on social media that, what were the Capitals doing? That I would rather have Milano in there over SOURDIF, or I would have rather had Crystal in there. That I know it was his first goal as a Capital, but I think that hopefully, at least fingers and toes crossed, that hopefully this helps build his confidence, because this guy can scoot. He's got some excellent straight line speed, and we saw that. I guess it didn't really pop for me in the last game, but the game before, against the Kraken, you could really see his scoot down the ice there. That is huge. And just, building on that, and also things to build on here is HENDRIX LAPIERRE's possession numbers, which I talked about in the second segment, that, you take a look at the box score and you see the goals, you see the assists, those kind of things. I'm talking about some of the more advanced metrics, possession numbers that, HENDRIX LAPIERRE, the Capitals had a belief in him, right? That they gave him that bridge deal when it was kind of a foregone conclusion that maybe his days as a Capital were in the rearview mirror. And why is that? Because last season got to start with the Capitals, didn't work out, went down to Hershey, killed it, right? Absolutely slayed it there, had the right attitude. That got him into camp in the fall and made the most of his opportunities after what I'm going to say a bit of a lukewarm first 3-4 games. I think that he's finally starting to get dialed in. Wilson and McMichael finishing. What we're seeing from Connor McMichael is huge as well. Those are the contributions to make a 5-1 win sustainable. That Wilson has been absolutely amazing to start this season, and physical, getting involved in the goal scoring, the heartbeat of the Capitals. You can almost in your mind's eye see the transition of power from Alex Ovechkin to Tom Wilson, and I think it's going to be a seamless one. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hope that Ovechkin plays, 5 more years. I don't think that's the case, but in any event, the Capitals are in a good position with Wilson at the helm, and huge. And, if your middle six and bottom six can chip in on offense and your top guys are still producing, you're not just riding one star, you're a team. And that's the thing. We saw Alex Ovechkin score against Columbus, but it's, the secondary and tertiary guys here that are getting it done. That is what has me feeling optimistic about the 25-26 Capitals, is its wins by committee. Third thing to look for as well is Alex Ovechkin's chase for 900. Yes, the narrative from one season to the next is always Alex Ovechkin. Gretzky, now it's 900, and the goalpost keeps getting moved further and further out. That's the narrative to watch right now. I don't want the Capitals to be so laser focused on that right now. I know it paid dividends for them last year in kind of a roundabout way, as they did great things, making it to the second round. But that is in the forefront. One goal away from 900. I think the Capitals should do what they can do to help him get that, but let's not concentrate. Let's not fixate on Alex Ovechkin exclusively. Let's try to widen the lens, get a 30,000-foot view of this team and see how well they're playing. And I think that you'll see that a whole lot more until he finally gets over that hump, right, and gets 900. And then let's put aside all the retirement talk. Let's not talk about it. Let's stop talking about, oh my God, it's 901 and it's 902 and confetti and stuff falling from the ceiling every time he scores a goal. It's a distraction at the end of the day. When he gets to 900, let's take a moment, let's cheer for him, but let's concentrate on big picture. The Capitals organization, not just Alex Ovechkin, because Alex Ovechkin this very well could be his last season in the NHL. Let's get him to 900, and after that, let's concentrate on building this team and sustaining what they've done. I mean, don't get me wrong here. The Capitals are playing very well. Some things to clean up here or there, getting some players back that are dinged up back. And then I think it is full steam ahead, as I think the Capitals, yes, yet again, I think are going to be surprising a lot of the NHL insiders who panned them to start the season. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition, a special weekend edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. Now for your second listen. For your second listen on this weekend, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holmi, and I'll talk to you again next time.